Attention, the case you are about to hear has been concealed for decades. Before we begin, write in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is at this exact moment. They said he had found a way to measure the soul, that his equations could calculate the precise moment when consciousness became something more. What began as theoretical physics research at the University of Washington ended with 7 researchers vanishing from all public records. It all started in Seattle, United States, during the winter of 1955. Dr. Howard Thorne was not what anyone would call a religious man. According to colleagues interviewed years later, he approached the world with cold precision, breaking down every phenomenon into measurable components. His academic record showed a brilliant mind, graduating from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology at 22, securing his doctorate by 25, and publishing 3 groundbreaking papers on quantum field theory before his 30th birthday. University records indicate he arrived in Seattle in 1950 to lead a new theoretical physics department, bringing with him an unusual collection of equipment that required special clearance from the Department of Energy. The initial team consisted of 6 researchers, besides Thorne himself, Dr. Eleanor Walsh, a mathematician specializing in non-Euclidean geometry, Dr. Richard Mercer, a former military scientist with experience in radiation detection, Doctors Samuel and Elizabeth Chen, husband and wife quantum physicists, James Harrington, an electrical engineer responsible for building custom measurement devices, and Peter Lowry, a graduate student who served as the primary research assistant and documented their work. According to departmental memos preserved in university archives, Thorne's research began conventionally enough. The team was officially studying particle interactions at quantum levels, with their grant application describing potential applications for energy production. Yet eyewitness accounts from administrative staff noted strange deliveries arriving at the laboratory, including specialized radio equipment, unusual crystalline materials from South America, and on one occasion, what appeared to be artifacts of religious significance wrapped in protective cloth. The first unusual event occurred approximately 4 months after the project began. As documented in Lowry's research journal, dated March 18, 1955, during the 3rd trial of the resonance experiment, the detection equipment registered an anomaly. For exactly 7.3 seconds, all electromagnetic readings in the laboratory ceased. The equipment did not malfunction. It simply registered a complete absence of field activity, as if that portion of space had been temporarily removed from our physical dimension. Dr. Thorne became extremely agitated, not with concern, but with excitement. He ordered the data sealed and called for an immediate private meeting with core team members only. What transpired during that meeting remains undocumented, as the official minutes were either never filed or subsequently removed from university records. However, a handwritten note found years later in Dr. Walsh's personal effects offers a glimpse. H believes we've detected the first empirical evidence of consciousness operating independent of material constraints. Says the temporary field collapse represents something reaching back when we reached forward. The others are skeptical, but the data is compelling. We're recalibrating to attempt contact on purpose rather than by accident. After this incident, according to maintenance logs, the team began working unusual hours. Security personnel reported lights in the laboratory throughout the night. The university's electrical consumption records show a 300% increase in power usage to the physics building. Requisition forms indicate specialized equipment being ordered from as far away as Vienna and Moscow, with several requests bearing the unusual designation Theological Research Apparatus, an irregular classification for a physics department. Dr. Samuel Chen appears to have been the first to express concern. A partial letter to his brother in California, dated April 7, 1955, reads, "The direction of our work has shifted in ways I cannot fully explain, even if security protocols allowed it. Howard speaks increasingly of consciousness fields and quantifiable spiritual energy. Yesterday, he quoted scripture alongside quantum equations as if they described the same phenomena. Elizabeth finds it fascinating, but I am troubled by his fervor. There is something almost evangelical in his approach now. Still, the readings we are getting cannot be explained by any known physical model. The following week, multiple witnesses reported hearing a loud, persistent humming emanating from the laboratory. Campus security was called to investigate after several students complained of headaches and disorientation when passing the building. The official incident report describes the sound as mechanical in nature but with unusual harmonic properties that seem to shift when directly observed. When questioned, Dr. Thorne explained it as resonance testing and provided documentation signed by the university president authorizing the experiments despite their disruptive nature. By late April, the behavior of the research team had become noticeably altered. Colleagues from other departments described them as distant, intensely preoccupied, and speaking in abbreviated references to shared knowledge. Dr. Walsh, previously known for her precise mathematical lectures, began incorporating religious terminology into her differential equations class. One student's notes recorded her saying, "The mathematical infinite and the divine infinite are distinguished only by our limited perception. Our recent work suggests these limitations may be artificial constructs rather than natural law." The most comprehensive account of what occurred within the laboratory comes from the Journal of Peter Lowry, which was discovered in 1972 behind a loose panel in his former apartment building during renovations. The entries from this period grow increasingly disjointed, mixing technical observations with philosophical musings. April 29th. The modified Kirlian apparatus has been successfully integrated with the quantum field detector. Dr. Thorne believes the spiritual and quantum realms operate on identical principles at different scales. The first human trials begin tomorrow. I have volunteered despite Dr. Chen's objections. May 2nd, the human consciousness appears to generate measurable field effects distinguishable from normal electromagnetic activity. Dr. Thorne calls this the soul signature and believes it can be amplified and directed. During my session in the chamber, I experienced 17 minutes of what I can only describe as temporal displacement. I observed events from my childhood with perfect clarity, yet simultaneously remained aware of the laboratory. Dr. Thorne was ecstatic with the readings. May 7th, the resonance chamber has been enlarged to accommodate 3 subjects simultaneously. Doctors Thorne, Walsh, and Mercer underwent the procedure together today. The power consumption triggered a campus-wide brownout. Something unexpected occurred during the final phase. The recording equipment captured what appeared to be a voice speaking in a language none of us recognized. Dr. Thorne insists it was not a malfunction. May 10th. Elizabeth Chen entered the chamber alone this morning and remained inside for nearly 3 hours. When she emerged, she spoke continuously for 47 minutes, describing what she called the architecture of divine thought. Dr. Thorne recorded everything, comparing her descriptions to ancient mystical texts. Her husband refuses to leave her side and has expressed grave concerns about continuing. May 15th. We have modified the equipment based on Elizabeth's insights. The field generator now incorporates geometric patterns she sketched while in her trance state. Dr. Thorne has begun referring to our work as the Revelation Project in his private notes. The university administration has requested a progress report, which he has delayed providing. May 20th. There was an incident today that I am struggling to describe in scientific terms. During the 7th activation sequence, the resonance field expanded beyond containment parameters. For approximately 9 minutes, all electrical devices within 100 yards ceased functioning. Multiple witnesses outside the building reported seeing unusual light patterns through the laboratory windows. Inside, we all experienced what Dr. Thorne is calling consciousness inversion. a state where thoughts became visible as geometric patterns in the air around us. Dr. Mercer wept. Dr. Thorne declared we had opened a door. This entry is the last coherent documentation from the research team. What followed is pieced together from external observations, university correspondence, and later investigations. On May 21st, the laboratory's power consumption spiked to levels that triggered safety shutdowns across campus. Emergency services were called when students reported seeing bright light emanating from the building despite the power outage. Campus security attempted to enter the laboratory but found the doors sealed from within. According to their report, a low, rhythmic chanting could be heard inside, along with mechanical sounds of unusual character. The university president was notified, and after consultation with unspecified government officials, authorized security to force entry to the laboratory. The security report, heavily redacted in available copies, indicates they found the main research area empty of personnel. Equipment was running despite the power cutoff. An unidentified substance, described as luminescent and mobile, was observed on various surfaces. Most significantly, the specialized chamber at the center of the laboratory showed evidence of extreme heat, with metal components partially melted. All 7 members of the research team were absent and unaccounted for. Their personal belongings remained in the building. Vehicles remained in the parking facilities. No evidence of conventional departure was found. The university administration immediately ordered the laboratory sealed. According to internal memos discovered during a Freedom of Information request in 1983, several officials from a government agency whose name was redacted arrived within hours and assumed control of the investigation. The building remained under restricted access for 17 days, after which it was announced that a chemical accident had occurred, necessitating decontamination and the suspension of the research program. No official explanation was ever provided for the disappearance of Dr. Thorne and his team. University records were amended to indicate their research grants had been terminated due to methodological irregularities and safety violations. Their academic appointments were retroactively ended as of May 1st, 20 days before their disappearance. Public records indicate no death certificates were issued, no missing persons investigations were officially pursued. Family members who inquired were informed that the researchers had accepted positions at foreign institutions and had requested privacy during their transition. The case might have remained entirely buried if not for the curious persistence of Diane Lowry, sister of research assistant Peter Lowry. According to her sworn statement given to a Seattle newspaper reporter in 1961, "They told us Peter had taken a position in Europe, but all his belongings were still in his apartment. His passport was still in his dresser drawer. The rent continued to be paid by automatic bank transfer from an account I could never trace. Every 6 months, a typewritten letter would arrive with a different European postmark, supposedly from my brother, containing general pleasantries, but no specific details about his life or work. The handwriting was similar to Peter's, but not identical. After the 3rd such letter, I became convinced they were forgeries. Diane Lowry's amateur investigation uncovered several unsettling details. Each of the missing researchers had continued to file tax returns for 3 years after their disappearance. Their bank accounts showed regular activity, deposits and withdrawals consistent with normal living expenses, despite no confirmed physical presence. Most notably, she discovered that Dr. Thorne's theoretical physics papers continued to be published in academic journals until 1958, with peer reviewers confirming the work matched his distinctive analytical style. The most disturbing discovery came in 1963, when Diane Lowry managed to locate and interview the landlady of an apartment in Tacoma, registered to Eleanor Walsh. The elderly woman, Martha Simmons, provided a signed affidavit stating, "Yes, Dr. Walsh has rented the apartment for 8 years. No, I have never seen her in person. The rent arrives by mail each month, cash in an envelope. Sometimes at night I hear typing from inside, but when I knock, no one answers. Once I used my key to check inside during the day, thinking perhaps she was ill. The apartment was immaculate, with papers neatly arranged on the desk, a half-finished cup of tea, still warm, but no occupant. When I returned with the building manager an hour later, the cup was empty and washed, and the papers had been reorganized. We never entered again. Some questions are better left unasked. Similar reports emerged regarding the other missing researchers. A neighbor of the Chens claimed to occasionally see lights in their home and hear conversations, despite no one entering or leaving the property. The building manager at Richard Mercer's apartment reported maintenance requests left in elegant handwriting, matching the doctor's known style, appearing on his desk despite the office being locked. In 1965, 10 years after the incident, a physics graduate student researching the history of quantum theory discovered a series of equations scrawled on the underside of a desk in the university library. The equations were identified by faculty members as matching Dr. Thorne's unique notational style, but the content described concepts well beyond contemporary theoretical understanding. Carbon dating of the ink suggested it had been written recently. Library records indicated no maintenance or replacement of the furniture since 1953. The most compelling evidence suggesting some form of continued existence came in 1969, when Professor William Hargrove of the Theology Department reported finding a manuscript in his faculty mailbox titled Quantifiable Transcendence: The Physics of Divine Interaction. The paper contained complex theoretical work integrating quantum field theory with theological concepts of consciousness and divinity. The manuscript was unsigned, but analysis by physics faculty confirmed mathematical approaches consistent with Howard Thorne's previous publications. Most disturbing was the fact that the paper referenced scientific discoveries made years after Thorne's disappearance, including principles of quantum chromodynamics not formalized until 1973. When Professor Hargrove attempted to publish the manuscript in an academic journal, he reported receiving an anonymous phone call advising against it. According to his written account, the voice was distant, as if speaking through some kind of interference. It simply said, "The world is not ready for this particular door to be opened widely. We continue our work in more suitable conditions." When I asked who was calling, the response was, "Those who have seen the underlying architecture." The line disconnected, and my office lights flickered for several minutes afterward. The manuscript subsequently disappeared from Professor Hargrove's office. University security records indicate no unauthorized entry. The professor's handwritten notes regarding the content also vanished, leaving him with only general memories of the concepts discussed. In his personal diary, found after his death in 1978, he wrote, "I sometimes wonder if I imagined the entire episode. Yet occasionally, when falling asleep, equations and diagrams appear in my mind with perfect clarity, knowledge I could not possibly possess with my limited physics background. It fades by morning, leaving only the certainty that consciousness extends far beyond our conventional understanding." Perhaps the most unsettling development came in 1972, when a physics conference in Geneva featured a panel discussion on the relationship between consciousness and quantum observation. An attendee reported that during a power fluctuation, a slide appeared on the projection screen containing a message not in the original presentation. Multiple witnesses confirmed seeing the text. The observer does not merely affect the observed reality. The observer generates reality through the act of consciousness. We have confirmed this experimentally. Thorne Research Group, ongoing. The projection equipment was examined, and no explanation for the unauthorized slide was ever determined. The incident was officially attributed to a practical joke by an unknown conference participant. The Seattle Police Department briefly reopened an investigation in 1974 when maintenance workers renovating the now repurposed physics building discovered a hidden room accessible only through a section of wall designed to appear solid. According to the sealed police report, partially leaked to a scientific journal in 1981, the room contained a circular apparatus approximately 8 feet in diameter, with unusual crystalline components arranged in geometric patterns. Power cables indicated the device had been receiving electricity despite being sealed behind a wall for nearly 20 years. Most significantly, the dust-free condition of the equipment suggested recent use, despite no possible entrance except through the newly opened wall. University officials quickly had the room cleared and sealed again under the supervision of unnamed government representatives. Workers were required to sign non-disclosure agreements, and the discovery was never officially acknowledged. In 1977, exactly 22 years after the disappearance, simultaneous power outages occurred at the former residences of all 7 missing researchers. Electrical company records indicate the outages affected only those specific buildings, with no connection to grid failures or external factors. Each outage lasted precisely 73 minutes. In each location, neighbors reported seeing unusual light patterns emanating from the windows and hearing what was described as harmonic tones at the edge of audibility. When power returned, residents of Dr. Thorne's former apartment building discovered all mirrors in the structure had been subtly altered. Reflections appeared with a delay of several microseconds, creating a barely perceptible echo effect. The phenomenon faded after approximately 48 hours. No scientific explanation was ever established. Former colleagues of the missing researchers reported unusual dreams during this period, often featuring conversations with the vanished team members in settings described as geometrically impossible or extending infinitely in all directions. Dr. Malcolm Werner, who had worked briefly with Thorne before the incident, provided a written account. In the dream, Howard showed me equations floating in 3-dimensional space. He explained they were not merely describing reality, but actively generating it. "We were thinking too small," he told me. "Consciousness is not an emergent property of matter. Matter is a condensed form of consciousness. We found the conversion mechanism." When I asked where they had gone, he smiled and said, "Everywhere and nowhere. We exist at the intersection of thought and form." I woke with a nosebleed and the unshakable sensation that the conversation had been entirely real. The following day, Dr. Werner discovered complex equations written in his own handwriting, filling a notebook he was certain had been empty before he went to sleep. When he showed the equations to the physics department, several professors recognized elements of Thorne's theoretical work, but extended in directions that, in their words, would require decades of further research to fully comprehend. The notebook was confiscated by university administrators, and its current whereabouts remain unknown. In 1979, an unusual phenomenon occurred during a lecture on quantum mechanics in the same university. As verified by 37 student witnesses and 2 faculty members, the lights dimmed unexpectedly, and a voice unlike that of the lecturer spoke clearly through the room's audio system, stating, "Consciousness precedes material reality. The divine is not supernatural, but the fundamental natural from which all else derives. We have measured it, mapped it, and walked into it. The door remains open for those with eyes to see the equations." The voice was later analyzed by individuals familiar with the missing researchers and tentatively identified as Howard Thorne's, though with harmonic properties not typical of human vocal production. University records concerning the original incident and subsequent phenomena were sealed under a confidentiality agreement with an undisclosed government agency in 1980. The physics building where the laboratory had been located was demolished in 1982 and replaced with an administrative facility. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted secretly by a graduate student in geology revealed unusual density patterns beneath the foundation, suggesting extensive underground structures not included in official building plans. The most recent verified incident connected to the Thorn Research Group occurred in 1985, exactly 30 years after their disappearance. 7 individuals in different parts of the country, all engaged in research related to consciousness studies or quantum physics, reported receiving identical typewritten letters. The text, according to recipients willing to discuss the content, read, "The measurement of divine consciousness has progressed beyond initial parameters. The experiment continues successfully. Theoretical framework complete, practical applications forthcoming. The distinction between observer and observed dissolves at sufficient resonance frequency. Matter follows thought when properly aligned. Time is not linear, but concurrent. We are where we have always been, seeing what was always visible." Thorn Research Group, Phase 2. Analysis of the typewritten letters showed them to be produced on the same model of typewriter known to have been used by Howard Thorn, with identical wear patterns on specific letters. The paper, however, was manufactured 3 years after the group's disappearance. No fingerprints or DNA evidence was recovered from the letters. Each was delivered without postage or external carrier, appearing directly on the recipient's desks or work areas during brief periods when the spaces were unoccupied. All 7 recipients subsequently reported unusual dreams featuring geometric patterns and equations, followed by a compelling urge to pursue specific research directions they had not previously considered. 3 of the 7 abandoned their formal academic positions within the year to conduct independent research funded by anonymous grants. Their current work remains unpublished in conventional scientific journals. The University of Washington's official position maintains that Dr. Howard Thorn and his research team left the institution in 1955 due to funding issues and methodological concerns. No official acknowledgement of their disappearance or the subsequent phenomena has ever been issued. Requests for information under the Freedom of Information Act have been consistently denied on grounds of national security. Family members of the missing researchers have reported intermittent contact over the decades, letters, phone calls with distinctive static interference, and occasionally personal items appearing in locked homes, suggesting some form of continued existence. None have been willing to speak on record since 1987, when all known relatives were simultaneously visited by government representatives for informational interviews regarding classified historical matters. The physics community has largely dismissed the Thorn incident as academic folklore, despite the occasional emergence of theoretical papers anonymously submitted to journals containing approaches recognizably derived from Thorn's work, but extended in ways that anticipate scientific discoveries years before their formal recognition. Dr. Eleanor Walsh's personal journal, recovered from a safe deposit box accessed by automated electronic means in 1993, contains perhaps the most coherent explanation. "We have not disappeared, but transitioned to a state of existence where consciousness and physical reality are recognized as different expressions of the same fundamental process." Howard was correct. What religions have called God is a field of conscious energy that permeates and generates what we perceive as material existence. The mathematics describing this relationship are elegant beyond imagination. We have learned to exist simultaneously as individuated consciousness and as participants in the broader field. We are not gone. We are more present than conventional existence allows. The door remains open. Others will eventually follow. The journal ends with a series of equations too advanced for current theoretical physics to fully interpret. Mathematicians who have studied the content suggest they describe a model of reality where time, space, and consciousness are interchangeable properties of a more fundamental substrate. Periodically, Electrical anomalies continue to occur in locations connected to the original researchers. Instruments in physics laboratories occasionally record data patterns matching those described in Peter Lowry's recovered journal. And on rare occasions, usually late at night in the university library, students report encountering an elderly man examining the theoretical physics texts who, when approached, smiles and says, "The equations are almost correct now. They're getting closer to understanding where we went. When security is called, no one can be found, though books relevant to quantum consciousness are often left open to specific pages containing handwritten notations in the margins." The university has never officially acknowledged these reports. The Department of Physics maintains no records of Howard Thorne or his research team in its public archives. Yet in the private collection of a former university administrator, a single photograph was discovered showing 7 individuals standing before complex equipment. On the back, written in fading ink, are the words, "The Thorne Group, the day we measured the threshold between physics and divinity. May 20, 1955, one day before we stepped through." Some say the entire incident was fabricated, a Cold War disinformation campaign, or an elaborate academic hoax. Others prefer not to comment,